I think it's already ongoing. The question is, what are Republicans going to be willing to let go of?
Right.
Or is it going to be the Trump era National Environmental Policy Act regulations that they wanted to decodify with this bill? They're probably going to have to let go of that. It's going to be a concession question, really.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by energy and environment reporter Jeremy Beaman. Jeremy, H.R. 1, really big development. House Republicans sets up another confrontation with the Biden administration, as if there aren't already many of those. Talk us through a little bit about what this means.
This, as we wrote, this is Republicans' opening salvo, really, on energy security issues, climate-related issues, permitting issues as well. Sort of an omnibus of sorts of all those issue areas stacked together. And Republicans could do it the way they wanted to without Democratic support in the House, because they run things over there. But Chuck Schumer's already said the thing is dead, so it really kind of is a messaging bill in a way. But it does it is their initial offer. Republicans, Democrats are increasingly saying that they want to find a path on permitting reform and some other energy issues. But it's not going to, an agreement is not going to be as pro-fossil fuel as H.R. 1 is. And it's going to have to deal a lot more with transmission, the electric transmission infrastructure piece that Republicans didn't touch as heavy-handedly as Manchin's proposal, for example, last Congress did. And that's transmission is really going to be a priority for Democrats.
So is there going to be some other version, perhaps, that, because there are also, even though Democrats have the majority, they're still very reliant on a number of their least liberal, least progressive members with just 51 seats to vote with them rather than Republicans. Is there going to be, after this opening salvo, maybe some deal making going on?
Yes, there already is. There's been some reporting that there already are negotiations, and Bruce Westerman, who chairs House Natural Resources, who was a chief author of this bill, had told me and told others that he's been talking to Manchin through all of this. So Manchin has been one piece to this that they've already been engaging. But there are other more liberal House Democrats, like Scott Peters, for example, who has been talking to Westerman, and this has been reported in the press. Peters' staff has told me that these conversations are ongoing, even as Republicans have been pushing through their own bill. That Westerman has been sort of negotiating on other other things that they might come to an agreement on. So I think it's already ongoing. The question is, what are Republicans going to be willing to let go of?
Right.
Or is it going to be the Trump era National Environmental Policy Act regulations that they wanted to decodify with this bill? They're probably going to have to let go of that. It's going to be a concession question, really. And again, Democrats are going to really want something more aggressive on transmission. What they really want is to have more, to enable FERC and the federal government to sort of take more of a commanding role and frankly kind of take the states out of it a bit. That was in Manchin's proposal. There's not been, it hasn't been put in any other Democratic legislation, this approach, but among those sort of broad outlines floated by Dems, they want FERC to have more of a role in transmission, and Republicans generally, or some of them at least, are averse to that.
So WOTUS, there has been an environmental issue in which Republicans have at least gotten a short-term victory. Maybe won't hold up over the longer term, but they've picked a fight with the Biden administration, and they've gotten it through the Democratic-controlled Senate. Walk us through a little bit of the state of play with the water rule.
Well, the WOTUS story is unfolding in different avenues. So Congress has taken it on and want to cancel it. But also there's litigation. There's a case right now in the Supreme Court that could sort of trump even what Biden's expected veto on this thing. We don't know yet. But WOTUS generally defines what bodies of water, EPA, and the Army Corps of Engineers regulate as waters of the United States. And certain iterations of WOTUS have defined waters of the United States more broadly,
right.
And there have been instances, such as the Sackett case, where it impedes people's ability to build a home, even though they look around and say there's no navigable water around.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the regulations have been written, if it's adjacent to a navigable water, a given feature, then it could be covered. And so Republicans say, and some Democrats in the Senate now say, that the Biden administration's new rule, which several previous administrations have tried to rewrite but failed in court, failed to court challenges. Mm-hmm. The argument is that it's also too aggressive, this Biden rewrite, and so again, the Supreme Court could soon weigh in on this. They're not taking up the Biden rule specifically. They're taking up an earlier iteration, but they could sort of narrow what EPA can do on WOTUS, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm. There were some, as you mentioned, some Democratic defections on this, and it was notable that these were mostly people in competitive states, and in a couple of cases, people who are up for re-election mm-hmm. next year and are expected to face tough races.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Nevada Dems were sort of probably made most people open their eyes. And right. Water is a significant issue in the West and Nevada. You know how dry it is out there. Mm-hmm. So those were notable. But we also saw Manchin and Tester again right. jump on. And yes, as you mentioned, and Manchin, we should say, has not said he's running for re-election yet.
Sure.
In fact, he just recently said he wouldn't be making a decision until the end of the year. And he said on his political plans, seemingly leaving the door open to maybe a presidential run, which some have speculated about. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it has kind of bridged the gap. The WOTUS resolution of disapproval, as it called, that they passed. And like I said, we still have the litigation going on. We even have litigation in lower courts. And in fact, WOTUS has been paused in Texas and Idaho based on separate litigation from the case in the Supreme Court. So you have all of these different avenues that people in interest are challenging the WOTUS rule.
So a senator we've mentioned multiple times in this conversation remains a sticking point for the Biden
administration. We have
administration.
mentioned him a lot, yes.
We have mentioned him a lot. So there's a running theme of the Joe-on-Joe violence inside the Democratic Party and how to deal with that. But their latest dust-up really concerns something that everybody sort of thought they were on the same page on. I mean, the Inflation Reduction Act is a Joe and Joe achievement, but on electric vehicles, a major component of that, there's some difference of opinion.
Yes, the electric vehicle component and the domestic sourcing requirements that are built into that, the revised electric vehicle credit from the Inflation Reduction Act is at the heart of this. This feud really that keeps developing. Mm-hmm. Manchin we discussed this last time you and I spoke. Manchin has really been going on this tour and explaining to everyone why he voted for this bill. And really, he's painted even more in the last few weeks a picture that, frankly, he was the chief author of this bill. The story as he told it, now this is kind of a brief aside, but the story as he told it is Schumer came to him and said, you're gonna have to write this bill if you're not gonna get on board with what we're gonna pass. And so Manchin,
because this was basically revived from the corpse of Build Back Better.
Right. And so he put in everything he wanted, and once they kind of got to something, he said Manchin has never really been super on board with subsidizing electric vehicles.
Right.
He says, you look at all these manufacturers, they have wait lists for so many of their models. What does that show you? It shows that they have a really popular product that the government doesn't need to be subsidizing. Mm-hmm. But of course, it's fundamental to the Biden administration's climate change goals. They want to increase EV adoption.
Sure.
And so they insisted on the credit. And so Manchin built in these provisions. What can we get out of it is the way he said he looks at it. Mm-hmm. And so it includes these requirements that components come from specific places, manufactured, assembled in friendly nations, free trade agreement nations. And this has angered some allies who aren't traditional FTA nations. Mm-hmm. South Korea is one that's been angered, but Japan is one, and the Europeans too. Mm-hmm. And so they've been lobbying for flexibility in these things. And there's been some indications that that the administration is going to be a bit flexible, whether it's defining a word like processing for minerals,
Right.
defining it kind of liberally. That is something that we'll soon find out when they finalize their guidance. And if they do that, to a degree, Manchin said he's kind of okay with he's kind of actually been talked down from a ledge on this because the Europeans in particular have gone after him, and he's a big supporter of what reducing the Europeans' dependence on Russian energy, and so
Right.
he has kind of been talked down from his really stalwart ledge on this and said, okay, the Europeans can be more involved, but what he wants is for the parts to be assembled here to help our domestic industry.
Manufacturing.
Yes.
Which is a big talking point of the Biden administration.
Right, it is a
pride.
yes. It's just within that scope, how narrow are you going to be? And so he's expecting that they won't sort of hew as close to his intention with that, and so he's been really frustrated and threatened to take the administration to court over this. So we'll see when the guidance comes out, kind of how the administration has threaded that needle.
So at the end of this, only one Joe is going to be fully charged?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy. You can read Jeremy and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.